Johanson, and I'll let you guys first introduce yourselves, and please speak up.
Okay, I'm Terry, Coburn, Rescue. I'm president, I guess. My wife and I started Coburn Rescue probably over 24 years ago, and we're still doing it. We've got 45 horses at my house. They all have a name to start it, so if anybody wants to learn their tour, come on out. Give me a call. Anyway, Katie is the trainer, and she tried teaching me on computer, but she said it's easier to work with the horses than it was with me. So she would do the computer work if I just do the email.
Gotcha. I'm Katie Johanson, and I was doing off-site training for Four Corners for several years now, and then stepped in last spring to help with training and a few other projects at the rescue. I work with volunteer coordination. I help carry the computer work and everything else, I guess. So, but I'm really happy to be a part of the organization, and Debbie worked so hard to keep going and build up as great as she did for so long.
So I guess let's talk about Senate Bill 271, and you guys can describe it and how it benefits the horses and how the rescues work together to keep the horses out of the kill pens. And please speak up without our microphone. It's difficult. So if I get on to you, talk loud.
So SB 271 is Senate Bill 271 that was introduced or passed last year. It states that any horses that come through the New Mexico Livestock Board rescues get first right of refusal to take those horses instead of them going to the general public to keep it on. So what that means is after there is no ownership granted, like if a horse comes up through stray reasons or gets seized by the authorities, if the owners can't claim that horse back, then they send an email to us rescues. If we have space, we get to take that horse home for $60 plus fees if those are applicable. And then is it 10 or 12 rescues that are, I thought it was 12.
12, I believe.
Okay, there's 12 rescues in New Mexico. So amongst all of us, we've been really, really good about taking all those horses out for the New Mexico Livestock Board as of late. I don't think we've let any go through this year at least. But yeah, so after we have our chance to take them on, then they would go to the public for auction. The good thing about this is that instead of us having to bid against the public, where we wouldn't know where those horses would end up, I know kill buyer prices are, I think, $300-400 typically for a horse. So we would have to bid that essentially to get a horse to safety. You know, if they're going for higher prices than that, usually they're going to a good home or like someone that can afford to care for it properly, get the right training, that kind of thing. But now we can bring those horses to the rescue, make sure they've got the vet care they need, make sure they've got the training they need, and make sure they get in the right home that they need. And one thing I do want to bring up, because Patricia Eric is not here today, but she did bring up a couple good points that I had not thought about before yesterday, and that was that maybe a possible negative about this whole situation is that we are missing out on the connection building between both the buyers that might be interested in these horses and them knowing where to find those horses at the rescues, or even just giving the opportunity to people who might have offered at home before we have to take those horses on. So nothing's perfect, but I think this is a step in the right direction for rescues in general and just giving the horses the best shot they need.
I do too. And I hadn't even thought about that part with what Patricia had brought up yesterday. But we we do get, after normally there's a sale and we end up with horses, somebody will call and say, I wanted that horse and you guys just got it right out from under me. Well, come and look, fill out an application. Probably get it from us cheaper than what you were going to get it for anyway. But now you know the horse is healthy, because the first thing we do is get them a vet check. We get our trainer to work at them and see what level they're at. And all of that takes time and money. And so if the people know more about the horse when they step into it, I think they're better off.
I think, this is a Mustang Summit too, so something I was thinking about is how, we're not just a Mustang organization. We help all horses. A lot of times we get the domestic ones and the Mustang organizations get to handle the Mustang part of things. But, when those adoptions straight from the Forest Service and the BLM don't go well, a lot of times those horses end up at our place. And so we are doing our best to help the Mustang problem as well, just on the other end of the spectrum, So it's, I think that this, this Senate bill ensures that the Mustangs end up at the right homes, even if the first couple homes aren't the right ones, So we know that, in a place like ours, we really try to focus on education. We try to bring in volunteers and get them working with the horses, so we enable them to be able to adopt, whether it's from our place or from the Mustang holding ends, and that they're better prepared for the future than just going in blind like a lot of people might, through the Forest Service or the BLM. So I think we have a lot to offer there.
One of the things that is incredible with the rescues, and what I see is the Four Corners Equine Rescue, and because of the Senate bill, they are able to usurp the kill buyers from getting them. But there is a purpose for every horse, and I would like for you guys to kind of discuss that a little bit about, in these rescues, the role of the horses that are unwanted and how they become a part of the family and are important, as well as the young horses that get purchased and are trained by Katie to sell. So if you guys could talk a little bit about the family unit and the purpose of the old horses.
Well, I would like to tell a little story. And, okay, Katie. Anyway,
I love your stories.
One of the things we brought up yesterday about a horse remembering other horses. And we had a horse come to the rescue several years ago now. And she was a little Mustang. And she had a baby nurse at her side when she came. We named him Gamble. And then she kept getting bigger and bigger, kind of like one that we've got in this red barn now. And pretty soon, out popped another little baby, and we named him Clancy. Well, about a year and a half or so went by, and the kids were all growing up, and we got a phone call from some people that lived up just the other side of Albuquerque. You go just past Albuquerque and take a left and go up on top of the hill there. They had a house right there that bordered BLM land, and their thing in life was to go camping once or twice a week whenever the weather was good. And they just take their horses and themselves ride up to the mountains and spend a night or two and turn around and come back. Well, they wanted something that they could work with and start doing some trail with. So the lady really liked Clancy. Well, we took him up there and they spent the winter and most of the next summer, and finally winter was starting to come around, and she said, Clancy's just not going to get along with her husband's horse. They just hated each other. They would kick and it just wasn't going to get along for whatever. And so I'll bring him back and we'll refund your money. She said, I don't want my money, I just want him to have a good home. So I brought him back and it was all rainy, wet, and snowy last year. And if you can follow me, we'll stay out of the mud and put him in the round pen for a couple days. Like I said, we got 45 horses. And the whole barnyard was quiet. You could have heard a pin drop, I think, but it was just completely quiet. And then pretty soon as we're walking along and we hear this, yeah, and his horse is screaming from the background. And I looked over to see who it was. And he's screaming. And finally Clancy went, yeah. And I think Gamble was saying, is that you? And he said, yeah, it's me. They both shut up. He went in the round pen for the next 2 days. No more hollering. No other horse was screaming. And he was gone for a year or a little over. Tell me they don't know. I didn't tell him he was coming. If I would have, would it matter? They know so much more than we ever give them credit for. That's the end of that short story.
They do remember each other and they have family ties. And there's another good story is that maybe one of you guys can articulate for me is they have a wonderful horse. His name is Handsome. He's an Arabian. He's beautiful. Oh gosh, he's so handsome. But he's like in human years, he's 98. So his tongue always is kind of hanging out. But anyway, that horse, Handsome, 98 years old, it has to be. He doesn't have dentures. So anyway, he's a dentureless horse. So anyway, he had a purpose, and talk about that purpose with his girlfriend that passed away.
His purpose when he came, we had a horse that was completely blind. A gentleman from out Blanco called up one day and he was crying. And he said, I had this little white mare. She was just great with my kids. I would put her in the front yard when the grandkids were here. She'd walk around and eat the grass. And when she was ready, she would come over to the porch. I'd put a grandkid on her back. And they would pretend like they're steering her and ride her around the yard. When she got tired of it, she'd come back over to the porch. We'd take the kid off. If she just stood there, I could put another one on. If she wandered away, she would eat for a few minutes and come back, and I could put another kid on. And he said, her eyes started watering. And so I went to the feed store, and I thought, oh no. Went to the feed store and he said, I've got some outdated antibiotics, just put a couple squirts in her eyes. And anybody who's ever done any getting a syringe ready with antibiotics, I'm a sheet metal man by trade. And my wife would give the shots, I could get them ready, but I always have cuts all over. And you get antibiotics in a cut, it burns. I can only imagine what this poor horse went with when he squirted it in her eyes 3 times a day. He said, now I can't catch her. She doesn't. She just runs in circles. She won't come up. She bangs into things. So we took her to the vet. And we named her Blanca because she was white. And Dr. Quintana said that if he would have brought her to me to begin with, I could save her. But she's got reoccurring uveitis, which a lot of Appaloosas get. We found it in a lot of them. Different stages of going blind. And if we treat them with the right stuff, because you can't put antibiotics in the eyes. And so she was completely blind. We had her in a pin all by herself, but she was never happy. She just kept. And so then we had this really skinny horse that somebody had called about. We went and picked up, so we just put the 2 of them together.
he switched lives from her for the next 15 years, and they were happy, and he guided her. Yes, ma'am. Oh, okay. I thought you were going to ask a question or say something. Anyway, so Blanca and Hanson were together, and then last year Blanca laid down, and she, by the time the vet got there at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, she had not gotten up all day. So we put her down. Then Hanson was hollering and screaming, and instead of trying to keep him where he was, decided that we would just let him out, because we've got a fence all the way around my house and the property. Then we've got stalls and barns, and we would just let him into the common area, which we quite often have horses in there. Since he didn't like being alone, I ended up with this other big Canadian horse going out with him, and now they kind of pal around together. Anybody know what a Canadian horse is or would do? Anybody ever heard of Premarin or Premarin? That is the reason we opened our rescue, was we were going to be a Premarin baby rescue. And we did that for the first 3 years. We had a semi-truck with a whole load of babies. We'd drop off the babies at our house. And then one at a time, the ladies would come, and it was normally always ladies unless they sent their husband. But, and so the Premarin babies, what they do is they keep a mare pregnant with this big old cup attached to their rump, and they collect all the pee. The pee is what they want. They don't want the baby, they don't want the mare, they just want the pee from the mare, and they clean it up, concentrate it, clean it up again, and then they sell it back to women. And it is for women's hormone. Once you guys get 50 or so, you start changing. And it was about the only thing around that would actually get rid of menopause or the hot flashes or the temper swings.
So anyway, thank you so much for that story. But anyway, the purpose of these rescues is that animals are not abused and that horses are not abused. And going back to Hanson in his wonderful life, he's still there at the rescue. And his purpose, when I would see him, was to be a cane to that Blanca until her passing. And what a wonderful 15 years of life that gave her. And then he became kind of the pasture pal in the inside of the barn. So anyway, would you like to add anything there?
I just want to say he's the welcome wagon now, because anybody new that comes in, he essentially corners them and demands belly scratches, and that tongue stretches out, and his whole body stretches out, and you can't get away from that horse. So like, he is still going in 35 years of age, or 98 human years, but that horse makes everybody that comes to the rescue feel like they belong, for support with him. So he's the gem.
And what's so exciting about it all, when you get to do a tour at the Four Quarters Equine Rescue, is that they have a baby that's probably the youngest. He might be how old today?
It's 3.5, 4 months now.
3.5 months.
So we have
Almost 4.
4-month-old. He was 2 weeks, when he came, and then the 35-year-old horse, and then he also kind of welcomed that little baby there for a while. They kind of share the mesh that Hanson was fed.
Well, when I opened the door in the mornings to feed him, which his name is Thunder, get a bucket of milk, sticks his head in and starts drinking. Hanson always comes over to the door and has to check him out. How you doing?
So, you said that people herd these wild animals by helicopter. So, is there an alternative solution on what
speaking to his rights, maybe the right to congressman.
Right, to Congressman. Well, what we're seeing now in this area is that they're using all-terrain vehicles to round them up. And then they go to these, the auction board, what's it called, the livestock board. And then they're able to purchase them. In New Mexico, the best bill we have right now is the Senate Bill 271. I think right now also in the process is there's a marvelous woman, I don't know if she wants me to just say her name because we are broadcasting, but she is working on a free roaming wild horse act for New Mexico. It got killed in legislation last year, and so she's trying to get it through again this coming year. And so I think, and then you guys can add to any of that, but I think one of the things that we really need to understand is helicopters is no way because the horses that are chased will have PTSD like our veterans for the rest of their life. And they have to learn how to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I would say about that is, as the equine community, I want people to consider looking at rescues first. There's a lot of competitors in this area, whether it's rodeo, dressage, anything, and there are so many capable horses in rescue or in even the holding facilities, So I feel like there's a lot of times where people think they need to go specific breed to get the desired result, and they haven't even come to look to see what we have in the rescue. And maybe, it's my job to advertise those horses, but maybe also want them getting picked up for their looks and that kind of thing. But, something I was talking about yesterday is that the cost of adopting a prospect from a rescue or from a holding facility and then an additional 2-3 months of training with a professional trainer or more, is still less than what you pay for a well-trained, well-bred horse. And I feel like if we can start to make that normalized for equine community, I think that would do a huge benefit in making use of some of these Mustangs that come up holding and clearing out our rescues so that we can take in these horses that need space.
Thank you for that, Katie. And I think another answer just to her question on replacements of the all-terrain and the helicopter. The answer to that is using the PZP, which has been available these past 35 years. It is perfected. And so that you go out and the darter burns their band. And so we have that in Hickory Forest right now. And that wasn't before. So they get bait trapped, and at the same time, they're being guarded. So the mares get guarded by PZP and a booster, and then that keeps them from bowling. And there's a science to that probably is too intricate to talk about right now. But also, there is a new process, and it's now a new controversial thing, but it's because it's using this Gonacon instead of PZP. But what they have now the technology to do, and the Wildlife Protection Program is working on that right now, is they have an apparatus where the horse can come in and have some bait, like this alfalfa mix, something really good. And so you can put it out there. And then the horse comes up and it gets chipped. The technology chips the horse and then also guards the horse. And so the guarding mechanism is to read the chip and find out if that bear has been guarded or not. And so there's a lot of new humane ways to calm down the herds, to let them live in their limited space free. That's something we don't want to lose. We want to be able to see that out in the wild. And it's very important because, and I'm not the expert to go into detail about this, but a lot of our breeds, some of the quarter horses today are coming up with deformities because they're bred.
Interbred.
And it just pulls it down so much that their hooves get compromised, and if you don't have a good hoof, you don't have a horse. And they're vertebrae there's so many things that the Mustang can do for us that we haven't even tapped into. Reintroducing the Mustang into, some of our breeds that are bred down so far could be a remedy to that. So I don't know if there's anything else that we want to wrap up, and let's answer questions now.
I'm going to go back to the Senate bill, which sounds great. Do you have any idea of 12 rescues you said in New Mexico? Do they have the capacity to absorb the number of horses that are being gathered by the Department of Ag?
Yeah.
Most of us are what we already consider full. We do split, like the last one, they ended up with 12 horses who were walking in circles. And then Katie would pick up some. Did you brought the mares back, or was that then?
We picked up 2 pairs and a stud foal, and then went back to get another 2.
So we have a supply problem.
Yeah.
Okay. And also with Mustangs in general, we have a supply problem. And yet, all the energy is being spent on stopping batters. So we have a supply problem, but we're not dealing with the lack of demand. So how do we address, a massive reproduction rate, which could be PZP,
Exactly.
on a million-acre HMA in Wyoming? That's shooting him, you get a other shooting, you get golf course.
Here, let me get you a cold one.
Feeding him, I don't know why, but as it stands now, we have a massive supply problem and not enough demand. So what's the answer?
I spoke with Harper, and he was scheduled to come and was not able to. He's an outstanding man, and he is the one that is working with this mechanism so that we can call down the herds. But you answered your own question, and that is that PZP has been available. This could have been started 30 years ago.
Even with PZP, based on Dr. Kirkpatrick's research, because I spoke to him, it took him on acetate 14 years of almost 100% treatment to bring the herds down to the appropriate management level. Because the mares live longer when they're not reproducing. Plus you have non-responders, and then that affects your genetic pool. But let's just say it works perfectly. The mares live longer, so your death rate is less. 14 years it took him to bring the curve back down if all mares were being treated. So
Well, if you talk to, he was another friend of mine, and he would always say, it's difficult, and you have to have a lot of tools in your toolbox, and one of those is going to be PZP. The other is this new thing that we're coming out with what Rock Hard is experimenting and doing with. But the other thing is that if you take a helicopter and try to remove 100 horses all at once, you're going to do something that Dr. Kirkpatrick taught me, and that is compensatory reproduction. And so what's going to happen is that you're going to even make your problem worse. So, the answer I don't have. I don't know if all of us have.
But it's a too much supply, not enough demand. So you either have to increase the demand or lower the supply.
So one of the things that I hope can happen, and I know it's like what it just shakes your head, and you have to work at doing your passion and doing what's right for the animals. But one of the things that we're working on here in San Juan County, and I think if everyone would do this that has the gift of these wild horses around them, is that they work with their city councils, they work with their mayors, they work with the Forest Service, they work with your county commissioners, of which this is happening right now here in our county, and try to make the horses, an attraction. And so we start looking at these horses as something that is a benefit to the area rather than being a nuisance. And so we get more appreciation. There's all sorts of things that you can start figuring out to do with the horses that are not on public domain, on the reservation, and that goes into a whole lot of other different stories that I'm not prepared to present, but you have people taking over small bands and keeping them from reproducing, then you can start working on lowering the numbers. But if we don't start, like in my film, Mustang of the Caracas Mesa, that's the first thing Bob Browning said in 2004. What did he say? The time is now. Here we are in 2024, and now is the time.
So are the hickory horses being held at, close to zero population growth?
I'm not equipped to make those quotes. I think Bart Kipper with the Hickory Mustang Heritage Alliance can give you better numbers. But the Forest Service now is working with the community, the equine community, to start PZP. So the horses now are being managed through Big Track and PZP, and their numbers were, 700. Then they became 300. I would be surprised if there's 130 horses on that 72,000 acres. But is there anything else that you would like to add?
I just want to say I'm kind of your note about the demand problem. I know at our rescue, I'm really trying to invite anybody out who wants to know about horses and who wants to learn, so that we can start getting our people ready for taking on a little bit of this burden.
I'm always referring to you.
Thank you.
It's so hard to get people down there. I don't know what their resistance is.
Well, if they want to call me, they are more than welcome to. I'd love to answer any questions they have about it, because it really is, I'm trying to make it just a total learning experience. We try to take from a lot of different methodologies and things so that it makes sense for each person and they get out of it what they want. I consider myself an adoption enabler because I have gotten a lot of my volunteers to adopt horses as well, and that feels really good. But even if they don't, some of the connections they've created with some of those rescue horses, whether Mustangs or not, is just incredible. And I think if people come down and see that power, it's just really, it's life-changing, and maybe they'll get a different view of the wild world as well.
I wonder if there's not a way to make inroads into the rodeo community here, because I know people that are, I've got to have a paper horse, and they're riding at a very not paper horse level, frankly, but they have it in their mind that they have to have a paper horse, even if it's gelding. So, just wondering if there's a way to get people that have Mustangs to compete with those events and then give them showing. So because people all the time, oh, that's a Mustang, oh, they're so shocked. Absolutely, that they can do the job.
And
They do appear to be that way.
I feel like
That's how we get it, right?
Nancy Bernhal's project with the Mustang Challenge, I feel like she's having a writing program this year, is that what she said? Yeah, I think when people start to do that this year, they're definitely going to maybe reach out and give these horses more of a chance, you know what I mean? So I think I'm totally open to that, as long as, we train in a fairly gentle way, and I feel like as long as someone can adopt those methods too, then absolutely take them into competition. But I just want to make sure that we have the best outcome for the horses.
Yeah. Well, I know I got my challenge horse from last year because it's a 2-year-old. People wanted to start with barrels.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like,
We're building a community, and we're building infrastructure, and I think our session is ready to close. We have to follow our schedule. But those are the answers that we recognize our horse. We try to get people now to be interested in them. We feature them like we do our rivers, our sandstone, and all of the other things that we cherish in the landscape. And then we build all of the institutions and organizations that are now in place, and that's the National Mustang organization, the National Mustang Alliance of Colorado, and then we have the Four Corners Equine Rescue, we have the Hickory and Mustang Mustang Heritage Alliance. We have the Forest Service now picking up with PZP, working with the organizations, and we have a Mustang Challenge in our own area. And so, in bringing this Equus Film Festival to our county and to Aztec is the answer. And we're getting there, and we want everybody to appreciate what we have, the beauty what we have. So it's really outstanding to have the Lenore Equus Film and Arts Fest, Lisa Dearson, Rambo, Mustang of the Caracas Mesa, and you guys that are here today. So thank you very much.
I've got one thing to say. If most people are like me, they won't think of something to say until we're gone. So feel free to give one of us a call if you've got something to say, because we're always open for ideas. We need help just like the horses, so we're trying to push, and if you guys come up with something, don't hesitate.
Thank you. I want to work with you guys so bad. I got Mustang Magic. I'm turning 62. I'm ready to retire and play with horses that need me. And my dad used to say, you got hypnotic suggestion. You go to some of these horses that you just brought off the mountain, and you're sitting at the corral and they come right up to you. And I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I've had that with horses my whole life. And they'll put their hoof in right in my hand, and I'll be sitting there talking to them while cleaning up the hoofs. I was a little guy. I was only this tall, like 1976. I turned 15. And I came to Colorado. I didn't want to be in the desert anymore. I wanted to go help Grandpa take 2,000. We took 2,000 sheep from Governor North to Chama through Pacosa Springs. They closed the highway for my grandpa to take his sheep all the way up to the high country at San Juan's. And we'd lose them in the south part of, oh my God, I was the guy that found them tangled in barbed wire, bleeding, and the coyotes were sitting there licking their chops.
Well, Dennis Martinez, I really appreciate you, and thank you for coming to this session and being a part of it.
You guys made my day. And come over and see my booth. You guys can have anything you want. I'm telling you, this is just, I sell that to buy egg for the babies that we save all over this area. And that wood is free. It came from this area. And most of my wood comes out of San Juan River, because my grandpa was Juan Martinez, and I call him the same.
Well, thank you.
Thank you guys. I want to remember